Welcome back to Omishiroi Recap. Today, I will recap Frieren Beyond Journey's End. This anime tells the story of an elf girl named Frieren who has made a big mistake in her life. The story begins with the heroes having killed the dreaded Demon King. After 10 years, they arrive at the royal capital and are greeted by a crowd of adoring fans as they parade through the streets. When they arrive at the palace, the king thanks them. Himmel, the hero, Eisen, the warrior, Heider, the priest, and Frieren, one of the greatest mages. After the defeat of the Demon King, the world will enter a new era of peace. The citizens party in the streets that night, and the heroes reminisce about their long journey together.
その点私は優秀。
ミミックに食われかけた時は置いてこうかと思ったぞ。
They look up to the sky and see the Ira meteor shower. Frieren states that the view from the city is not ideal. She knows a better place and promises to show it to them. Once every 50 years, the Ira meteor shower happens, and they all agreed to meet again in 50 years. To an elf, 10 years of adventure was a mere trifle. She would travel for a while, collecting spells, probably around 100 years, and bid farewell to her friends. Years passed, and Frieren needed a shadow dragon horn for one of her spells. She remembered finding it during the journey to slay the Demon King and wondered if Himmel still had it. Since it was almost time for another meteor shower, she visited him. The city had changed. Just like the hero, he was twice as old. Even though his closet has been emitting an evil aura all the time, Himmel keeps it because this is something precious that his friend left. The two got ready and met the other two members. Heider has aged and is authoritative because now he is the bishop of the holy city. At the same time, Eisen had not changed. After a week of walking, they arrived in time to watch the Ira meteor shower together for the last time. Himmel was very grateful to Frieren. Thanks to her, Himmel finally had such an exciting adventure. Not long after that, Himmel reached the end of his life. At the funeral, Frieren realized that she had never really known him. Even though she knew human life was short, she regretted not getting to know him better. As a person known to be one of the greatest mages, she made a big mistake for the first time in her life. After that, Frieren continued her journey to collect magic and thought about getting to know humans better. 20 years passed, and Frieren wandered on the outskirts of the holy city. A little girl with dead eyes approached her and said she seemed lost. Frieren told her she was looking for Heider's house. It turned out that the little girl Fern was an orphan war victim from the southern continent. Heider had one request: to accept Fern as an apprentice and take her on her journey. But Frieren said the girl would only burden her, so Heider asked her to stay and help decipher a grimoire that might hold the secret to immortality. Besides, in her spare time, she could teach Fern magic. Frieren went looking for her and found her standing on a cliff. Fern said that the priest told her that she would become a witch after she was able to make a hole in the rock across the cliff. Frieren asked if she liked magic and was reminded of herself when the girl replied,
魔法は好き。ほどほどでございます。私と同じだ。
Then Frieren discussed the 3 factors required for long-range magic: the amount of mana, the power used to fire it, and the ability to control it. Due to Fern's lack of mana and firing power, Frieren told her it might take years to master it. Even so, her magic control ability was quite high. Years passed as Frieren taught the young mage while deciphering the grimoire. Soon, 4 years passed, and Fern's abilities improved at a rapid pace. One night, Heider collapsed and was bedridden. Frieren went to tell her apprentice, but Fern refused to go and take care of him, for she still had not succeeded, and if she did not continue to do so, she feared Heider would die before she returned the favor. Heider had saved her when Fern had intended to end it all after her parents died in the war. Fern wanted to prove that she could care for herself so he would feel at ease and grateful for saving her. Frieren accepted her resolve and left it at that. Then Frieren finished translating the grimoire and told him there was no magic of immortality or bringing the dead back to life. Heider is not surprised, though he didn't expect that. He asks about Fern's progress, and at this point, Fern is practically a witch already. Now that she is no longer a burden, Frieren realizes that Heider tricked her into teaching the girl so she could take her on the journey. Knowing Heider would not last much longer, Frieren began to cry, begging him to give Fern a proper goodbye and make as many memories as possible before his time came.
ありがとうございました。おかげでハイター様に恩を返すことができました。
Eventually, they visit Heider's grave and spill liquor to his liking. The two began traveling and doing odd jobs in exchange for spells. They meet an old woman who asks them to restore the glory of the hero statue of Himmel. After cleaning it, the woman suggested adding flowers, and Frieren had the idea to use blue moon weed, a flower from his hometown. But Frieren had never seen it and couldn't conjure it up. It had unfortunately been decades since the flower had been seen in the area. 6 months passed, and their search yielded nothing. Frieren begins to worry about Frieren's obsession with magic and worries that they are wasting their time looking for something that doesn't exist. Knowing that Frieren says she will end her search soon, Frieren protests, but a mouse steals the seed bag. They follow the creature to an abandoned tower in the forest and find a blue petal. Frieren flew to the top and found blue moon weed.
いつか君に見せてあげたい。
遅くなったね、ヒンメル。
Frieren finally felt Himmel's promise to show her the flowers from his hometown. Although he had died over 20 years earlier, Frieren felt she would know him even in death. The older woman was overjoyed to see the flowers, and as a final touch, Frieren placed the flowers on Himmel's head. After years of traveling, Frieren and Fern arrived in a trading town to stock up on supplies. Frieren said they should split up. Fern was tasked with getting all the essentials and was confused about what Frieren would buy. She has a habit of spending what little money they have on unnecessary items like medicine to melt clothes. Fern followed her to the accessory shop, but she didn't see what Frieren was buying. After finishing her shopping, she met up with Frieren at the inn. She was surprised when Frieren told her to get ready for the restaurant. Fern forgot it was her birthday, and Frieren gave her a gift she had bought at the accessory store. Fern was overjoyed to get a really beautiful hair ornament, and Frieren started trying to get to know her and wanted to understand other people's feelings. The two set off and then found themselves deep in the forest. Fern's defense magic increased, but Frieren showed a gap in her defense and almost killed her. The defense magic drained mana quickly, so she had to be careful. Then Frieren brought her to a small village, and an older man immediately recognized her and knew she was there to see the place where Qual was sealed. The man told them that Himmel visited yearly to check the seal and promised Frieren would not abandon this village. After a long time, they would open it tomorrow. That night, Fern asked about Frieren sealing a demon and being unable to defeat it. Frieren explained that Qual was one of the great mages in the Demon King's army, making Zoltrak's powerful penetrating magic that was almost impossible to resist. The next day, Frieren broke the seal, and the demon instantly recognized Frieren after not seeing her for 80 years. Knowing the Demon King had been killed, Qual told them that they should prepare to die. The time had come, and Frieren asked Fern to protect them from the attack.
フェルン、前方に防御魔法。
ゾルトラー
It turned out to be just ordinary attack magic. How disappointing. After they sealed it, the witches began to study and cast the spell. Then, they devised a method to defend against magic and finally created a powerful defense against magic. Qual understood how the defensive magic worked and realized that it required a large amount of mana. So, he launched attacks and tried to defeat them by depleting their mana. Fern distracted him while Frieren hovered in the air and exploded until the demon was destroyed. Then they returned to the village, and it turned out that the older man had once uncovered her skirt. This upset Himmel even though he wanted to see it, too. A year passes, and an older man brings them to a shoreline littered with the remains of ships along the coast. The man offers a grimoire written by the legendary Mage Flam. Frieren accepts it as payment for cleaning up the shoreline despite Fern's protests, as most of Flam's grimoires are fakes. But Frieren agrees to help anyway for her reasons. They spend 3 months in the town, and winter arrives. Fern woke a sleepy Frieren and forced her down to the beach to continue their work. They moved huge piles of driftwood and broken ships and lit them that night. The older man asks if the beach will be cleaned before the New Year's festival they organize yearly. Frieren promised that they would be able to finish the job the night before the festival, but Fern was worried that Frieren would not be able to wake up in the morning of the festival and watch the sunrise. Frieren remembered the last time she was in town with her group and felt guilty for sleeping in and missing the festival. Then Fern wakes her up before dawn, and they go to the shoreline to watch the sunrise. Frieren didn't understand, but when she saw how much Fern enjoyed it, she started to understand and remembered Himmel's words earlier about how he understood Frieren so much. Frieren also thanks Fern for being there to wake her up on time. Later, they visit Eisen. Frieren asks if there is anything she can do while they are there. Eisen tells her that he is looking for Flam's notes. Frieren doubts, but Eisen assures her that the clues he got from Hyder are legitimate. They start by looking for the giant tree and do it as quickly as possible because Frieren doesn't like it when they waste time leisurely. After searching for a few days, Frieren finally found a giant tree. Frieren asked Eisen why he wanted the note, and he explained that he did it for her. 30 years ago, at Himmel's funeral, she regretted not being able to get to know him better. According to Eisen, her words should have been delivered directly to Himmel. It was rumored that Flam's note had something about communicating with the dead, so Eisen wanted to help her because he knew that Frieren must have regretted it. They reached the tree, and Frieren noticed a strong protection spell around it. It had been 1,000 years, and she remembered going back to planting her mother's tree to protect the place. Flam was sure that Frieren would someday make a mistake and think of knowing humans, so Flam advised her to come to this place when that happened. Behind the tree was a small house and a book floating on a table. It was revealed that Frieren was the best student of the great mage Flam. The account explained how Flam arrived at heaven, or the land where souls rest, at the northernmost tip of the continent. She also talked with her comrades in arms in the past. If it is in the north, the land is now where the Demon King's castle stands. Eisen asked Frieren to look for that place and talk to Himmel. Frieren agreed to check it out, and the three walked back. They returned to Eisen's place, where he would stay as he was too old to travel anymore. Eisen tells Frieren that it took them 10 years to get there. We better fasten our seatbelts by clicking the subscribe and like buttons because this story has just begun. They get to the next town, and the locals warn them about a mountain pass. The adventurers have recently encountered a ghost. As they travel through the mountains, Frieren thinks it may be the undead, but they need more information. They do know that the ghost appears to be a deceased family member or friend who looks exactly like they did when they were alive. Some even say they have talked to them. Frieren has a description of the monster, and they must travel through a mountain pass. Frieren can differentiate between types of magic and manages that there is an illusion of magic there. Frieren suspected it was Einsam. When they met him, all they had to do was use offensive magic to defeat the ghost. But Frieren was worried that Frieren would not be able to shoot the imaginary ghosts of her loved ones. As they continued their journey, the fog grew thicker, and her precious memories of her foster father surfaced. Frieren froze and could do nothing. At the same time, Himmel appeared before her. Frieren was surprised that she had changed a bit, and the illusory behavior exemplified was too good and told her to shoot. Finally, they managed to blow up the fake ghost with more force than necessary, leaving only a black ash-like substance in its wake. Then they reached the village of Regel and found a dragon and its lair. Frieren noticed a grimoire in the lair. She immediately told her apprentice to remove it but avoid destroying the lair. Unfortunately, the magic only bounced off and instantly woke the dragon.
逃げるよ。
Luckily, they managed to escape the dragon's pursuit. Frieren remembered Eisen telling her that his apprentice, a warrior named Stark, happened to live in the village. An old woman approached them and said Stark wanted to meet them properly. A dragon destroyed the village 3 years ago, but since Stark appeared, the dragon has left. Frieren tells him they need a warrior for their journey, and Frieren needs him to keep the dragon busy for 30 seconds. Stark never defeated anything, and the dragon left it of its own accord, but Stark is treated as a hero.
あいつ家を野菜みたいに輪切りにしちまうんだぜ助けてくれよフリーレン
フリーレン様、こいつはダメです。
Frieren gives him until the next morning to decide if he will join the group. They hear an explosion in the distance that night, and Frieren tells Frieren it is Stark. Frieren was curious, so she checked it out and found Stark practicing carving a giant rock there. Frieren asks him why he keeps training if he has no intention of fighting the dragon. When Stark first came to the villagers were terrified of the dragon, but now they can laugh freely, thinking the village will be safe because of Stark. So Stark is determined to fight the dragon once again. Frieren and Frieren went to see him the next day, but he wasn't there. They thought he had run away, but he was still there. Stark insists that he will hold the dragon for 30 seconds and promises Frieren that she will finish the job if he dies. As the three stalk the dragon, Frieren notices Stark's hands trembling, reminding her of Eisen. He trembles the same way when they fight a powerful enemy. Eisen says that he wouldn't have made it as far as he did if he wasn't afraid. Stark approaches the dragon, but it doesn't immediately attack. Frieren explains that the dragon is smart. It left the village because it realized its opponent's strength was stronger. Even Eisen recognizes that his students are powerful.
俺の弟子はとんでもない戦士になる。
Stark attacked the dragon with the first swing of his axe, breaking its claws. The dragon threw Stark into the air. As the dragon was about to launch a breath of fire, Stark picked up his axe and brought it down on the dragon's skull hard enough to fall to the ground.
Oi! なんで撃たねえ！ふざけんなよ、クソババア！
もう死んでいるよ。
Stark didn't think he could defeat the dragon by himself. Frieren congratulated him and excitedly walked towards the treasure hoard. The trio gives the villagers the good news, and the grimoire they collected contains a spell that can make clothes invisible. Frieren confirmed that it worked but was unimpressed, even more so when she used it to examine Stark.
何？
窒素。
窒素くねえよ！
The group makes it to the walled city. They hear of monster activity in the area, and no one is allowed past the checkpoint, so they are stuck in the city. Frieren tells them to check the city while she finds an inn. Frieren hears that they might be stuck there for up to 2 years and tells Stark about it. Then they find Frieren hiding in an alley, and she tells them that she is being followed.
申し訳ありませんでした、フリーレン様。関所はご自由にお通りください。
But checkpoints won't be a problem for a hero. That way, they can continue their journey and be greeted by a crowd of fans. Then, they reached the grenade area and noticed an unusually large population of guards. Frieren suddenly took out her magic wand, and Frieren was worried they mightn't do that in public. But Frieren explained that a demon was there and it was preparing to attack. Frieren is immediately thrown to the ground by the guards. It turns out that the demon named Lugner is a messenger of peace. As a result, Frieren gets thrown into jail. Frieren and Stark visited her and told her she was sentenced to 2 or 3 years. Then Frieren explained that one of the 7 generals of the Demon King named Aura was regathering her power. Reportedly, this city has long been at war with these forces. Because they are tired of fighting, they intend to make peace by sending demon envoys. Frieren only saw demons as monsters. She remembered when she and the other heroes went to see the young demon who had killed a child from the village where they lived. Himmel was not up to it, and the chief stopped Frieren from killing him. He took the demon into his home and tried to raise him like his daughter. Unfortunately, one day, the demon killed the chief and set his house on fire. The townspeople were afraid of him, but seeing that this approach didn't work, Himmel, without hesitation, cut off his hand and saved the girl. The young demon half-heartedly called his mother, but Frieren mercilessly shot him.
なんでお母さんなんて言葉を使うの？殺せなくなるでしょ。まるで魔法のような素敵な言葉。
Before he died, the demon explained that he had called his mother so humans wouldn't attack him. Frieren told Stark and Frieren that the demon was just a liar pretending to be innocent to avoid being killed. While Frieren was alone, a demon named Drot came to the basement, and after killing the guard, he introduced himself as Aura's subordinate executioner. Frieren warned him that she was powerful and stronger than Aura, the guillotine.
お前を殺しに来た。
言っておくけど私強いよ。
俺よりもか？
断頭台のアウラよりも。
Drot laughs and tries to use a thread spell to cut her throat, but Frieren is smarter than him and concentrates mana around her throat to keep her head. The demon believes he is strong, and Frieren praises him efforts, but she quickly kills the demon. Frieren tells Stark elsewhere that they should appeal to Granite to release Frieren. Stark tells her that when Lugner's cold, dead eyes are fixed on Frieren. It scared Stark because it felt like the demon didn't even register them as a threat. At the same time, Granite meets Lugner to discuss Frieren's escape and Drot's disappearance. When the demon can't talk his way out of the situation, he bites his hand to draw blood to use as a knife and kills the guards in one slash. He wounds Granite but keeps him alive because they need him to lower the city barrier. While heading to the mansion, they accidentally meet a hooded figure, Frieren. She says she will leave the city and asks them to deal with the demon themselves. At the same time, Frieren detects many mana nearby and estimates that Aura has been observing her. That night, Stark and Frieren sneak into the Granite mansion to kill the Messenger of Peace. Stark enters the room and tries to free Granite. Granite tells him to take the coat of arms hanging around his neck to evacuate the population. But suddenly, Lugner came to the place. Stark was annoyed that Lugner never looked at him. He tried to launch an attack, but unfortunately, Lugner pinned him. At that moment, Lugner thought Stark was alone, so he was surprised when Frieren shot Zoltrok's magic at him. He was lucky to survive because he specialized in blood magic and could stem the bleeding. Stark convinces Frieren to leave, they grab Granite and head out the window. Lugner tells Lenia to fight Stark while he fights Frieren, who reminds him of the first mage who hit him with that magic, Frieren the Slayer, the witch who sent more demons to the grave than any other in history.
歴史上で最も多くの魔族を葬り去った魔法使い、早々のフリーレン。私の嫌いな天才だ。
It was a rare moment when her anime name was mentioned in the story. Frieren directly faced Aura. She had more puppets than the last time they fought. Aura's magic specialization allowed her to control people at will and become one of the Demon King's 7 all-powerful generals. Granite explained that Aura put her soul and her opponents on a balance sheet and weighed the amount of magic power. Whoever has more magic power can subdue and control their opponent even after the decay of their body, leaving only a suit of armor. Frieren continued to fight Aura's subordinates and managed to eliminate the magic used to control them. The last time they fought, Frieren, without hesitation, cast a striking spell to eradicate them. But after that, Himmel scolded her. Aura replied that she shouldn't care about the words of the dead rotting in the ground, hearing that made Frieren that demons are just monsters so that she can kill them mercilessly. Stark and Frieren intend to fight against the demon. Then Frieren shows that there is mana in the blood and rips off her cloak. But unfortunately, it's too late because the demon already knows their existence. The demon stabs her in the shoulder while Stark is thrown to another place, and the two are locked in battle. Lugner is surprised he wasn't able to fatally wound Frieren and insists on asking her a few questions about Frieren's whereabouts. Frieren tries to retrieve her staff when Lugner realizes that Frieren has gone after Aura directly with her staff pointed at his back. Frieren says that she can perforate his heart at this distance. Lugner wants to try to see what she is capable of. Frieren almost succeeds and confirms that his heart is his weak point, while Lenia thinks her fight with Stark is over, but he refuses to give up and gets back up. Lugner continued to think he was superior to Frieren but couldn't keep up with her. With her ability to fire spells faster than they could be sustained, he would wait until she ran out of mana, but that approach didn't seem to work either. Lenia had witnessed Aizen on the battlefield, and Lenia could read his mana and copy their fighting techniques. But Stark recalled Aizen's words: when facing a stronger opponent, he had to keep getting back up and hitting his enemy. The winner was whoever was still standing. The two battles reach their climax. Stark leaps into the air without paying attention to the defense until he is injured, but Stark immediately uses a lightning bolt. Lenia's death distracted Lugner, and Zoltrak's demon-killing magic hit him. Lugner, dying, was convinced that his master would win against Frieren. However, he felt something strange and wondered why Frieren's mana was so weak that she could launch a powerful attack that hadn't even been exhausted. Suddenly, he realizes and calls Frieren and Frieren a disgrace to mages, and at the same time, Frieren sends him to hell. Later, Flam found the elves' village wiped out by the demons, but she found one of the Demon King's generals dead. Flam was convinced that assuming that an elf girl killed the demon and walked towards her because she was impressed by the amount of mana she had. But Frieren assumed that Flam was a much more powerful mage. That impressed Flam, and she declared that she would be her new apprentice since the entire village and everyone in it were gone. Suddenly, they were stopped by 3 demon mages. They told Flam that they would spare her life if she dropped the girl off. Flam was in no mood to spare anything before they could even react. Flam instantly vaporizes them, and she tells Frieren that she tricked and killed her enemies by hiding her true power. After letting her recover, Flam trains her to hide her mana for the rest of her life, and she has to trick the demons for the rest of her life. Flam also asked her to live without attracting attention, and the moment her name was recorded in history was when she killed the Demon King. Aura saw the pitiful amount of mana around Frieren and took out the scales to weigh their souls against each other. She was fully confident of her victory as Frieren had not changed in the 80 years since their last battle. Aura took out her sword and walked towards Frieren. Frieren thanked her for her overconfidence, which finally defeated her. Then, she told her she had spent the last 1,000 years limiting her magic power. Aura, 1000年以上生きた魔法使いだ。自害しろ。So, the message we can take is never to underestimate others because the person we underestimate may be hiding his true power. After the fight, Granite saw the fallen warrior's armor field and thanked Frieren for keeping it intact to honor the dead. Then Frieren praises Fern and Stark for defeating the demons. Meanwhile, Granite finds his son's amulet in one of the soldiers' armor and feels very grateful to Frieren. Frieren handed over a grimoire related to the magic barrier surrounding the city as a gift. Frieren knew it was fake but accepted it as a gift since it was her hobby. Granite asked them to stay there for a while so the townspeople could thank their savior. So, the trio stayed to help rebuild the town and mingle with the people. After a few days, the trio headed for the mountain pass to go to the next town, but they were greeted by a blizzard that left them lost, and even Stark fainted. They couldn't travel with magic in the storm, so Fern decided to drag him along. Luckily, Frieren knows about a shelter at the foot of the mountain that looks well maintained. When they get there, they hear voices inside, and Fern insists on looking for another place to stay when she sees a man crouching there. The man introduced himself as the monk warrior Kraft, and the others introduced themselves in turn, except Stark, who was still cold. The next morning, Stark woke up with a start after sleeping next to the old man. Then Frieren and Fern helped dig for food supplies so they could survive and stay there for a while, until the snowstorm stopped. They worked together every day until almost 6 months passed, and the group survived the winter. The three then said goodbye and parted ways with Kraft. As they pass through a mountain pass, Frieren collapses, and they have to carry her. Stark offered to carry her, but Fern dismissed Stark as a pervert. Meanwhile, Frieren embarks on a journey with a group of heroes to kill the Demon King. Himmel carries a replica of the legendary hero's sword, hoping they will find the original on the way. The trio finally reached a small mountain village, and they were greeted by a little girl who was the head of the sword village. She recounted the recent destruction caused by the Lord of the Mountains. Stark knows something about this village. The legend says that the hero of Himmel came and managed to pull the hero's sword from the stone. The next day, they went to clean up the monsters. While Stark was in front of the cave, he saw something in the cave, but suddenly, a giant beast came down from above. Stark jumped and cut off one of the creature's arms, and from the protection of Fern's defense barrier, Frieren had an opening to blow it up. Then Stark was confused as to why the hero's sword was still in the cave. It turned out that Himmel couldn't pull the sword from the stone and had to accept that he wasn't a true hero. Even so, Himmel proved he would defeat the Demon King and restore world peace. The three left the village, and Frieren promised to return in 50 years to clean up the monsters again. When they get to the next town, Frieren mentions Stark's birthday. Fern wonders what to give him. Frieren smugly pulls out the potion she bought to dissolve clothes. Fern, however, is not impressed and spills the contents on Frieren. Then Fern went to find Stark to ask him what he wanted for his birthday. Finally, following the trail of people Stark had helped throughout the day, she finally caught up with him while looking at the clouds.
シュタルク様。
あの雲おっぱいみたいだ。
エッチだった。
あっちはうんこだ。
Fern met him with a less than pleased look, invited him for a walk, and asked Stark what he wanted. Stark has never gotten a gift. In his village, they value warriors and look down on the weak. The only person who treated him well was his brother, but when the demons attacked their village, Stark ran away and left his brother behind. Fern consoled him and told him to choose his reward. They returned to the inn and found Frieren cooking Hamburg steaks that night. Eisen always cooked them on birthdays as a reward for the hard-working warriors. It reminded Stark of his brother cooking for his birthday. Even on the day of the attack, Stark was told by his brother to run to survive. He cared more about him than he thought. Let us know if you want the second part by commenting cute Frieren in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you guys in the next video.